Good morning, everyone. My name is Duna Cruza from BSed Mathematics 2-1. I am one of the reporter today, and we will tackle about nature of information processing or basic components of the IPT model. What is information processing theory, by the way? Information processing theory is a cognitive approach in which children manipulate information, monitor it, and strategic about it. It is a series of steps that explain how the brain acquires, processes, and stores information. A theory that tries to explain how the brain processes information and create memories. There are stages of information processing theory: the encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding: information is sensed, perceived, and attended. Encoding is the input of information to memory. We get information into our brains through a process called encoding, which is the input of information into the memory system. Once we receive sensory information from the environment, our brains label or code it. We organize the information with other similar information and connect with new concepts to existing concepts. Encoding information occurs through both automatic processing and effortful processing. For example, if someone asks you what you ate for lunch today, more than likely, you could recall this information easily. This is known as automatic processing, or the encoding of details like time, space, frequency, and the meaning of words. Automatic processing is usually done without any conscious awareness, while effortful processing, one of the examples is when you first learn new skills such as driving a car, you have to put forth effort and attention to encode information about how to start a car, how to brake, how to handle a turn, and so on. Next is storage. The information is stored for either a brief or extended period of time, depending upon the processes following encoding. Storage is the retaining information in memory. Once the information has been encoded, we have to retain it. Our brains take the encoded information and place it in storage. Storage is the creation of a permanent record of information. In order for a memory to go into a storage, it has to pass through three distinct stages. And this is the sensory memory, short-term memory, and finally, long-term memory. Sensory memory. The first step in the IP model holds all the sensory information for a very brief time. Its capacity is our mind receives a great amount of information, but it is more than what our minds can hold or perceive. Then the duration. The sensory memory only holds the information for an extremely brief in the order of 1 to 3 seconds. Sensory memory is a very brief storage up to a couple of seconds. We are constantly bombarded with sensory information. We cannot absorb all of it or even most of it, and most of it has no impact on our lives. For example, what was your professor wearing in the last class period? As long as the professor wearing the dress appropriately, it does not really matter what they were wearing. Sensory information about sights, sounds, smells, and even textures, which we do not view as valuable information, we discard. If we view something as valuable, the information will move into our short-term memory system, and that was our next process to discuss. Short-term memory capacity. The short-term memory can only hold 5 to 9 chunks of information. It is called working memory because it is where new information is temporarily placed while it is mentally processed. Duration, around 18 seconds or less. Short-term memory takes information from sensory memory and sometimes connects that memory to something already in long-term memory. Think of short-term memory as the information you have displayed on your computer screen, a document, a spreadsheet, or a web page. Information in short memory either goes to long-term memory or it is discarded. Next is the long-term memory, the third and final stage of storage. The long-term memory is the final or permanent storing house for memory information. It holds the stored information until needed again. Capacity. Long-term memory has unlimited capacity. Duration. Duration in the LTM is indefinite. Long-term memory is the continuous storage of information. Unlike short-term memory, the storage capacity of long-term memory has no limits. It encompasses all the things you can remember that happened more than just a few minutes ago to all of the things that you can remember that happened days, weeks, or years ago. But not all long-term memories are strong memories. Some memories can only be recalled through prompts. For example, you might easily recall a fact, what is the capital of the United States, or a procedure, how do you ride a bike? But you might struggle to recall the name of the restaurant you had dinner when you are on vacation in France last summer, right? Then the last stage, retrieval. The information is brought back at the appropriate time and reactivated for use of current task, the true measure of effective memory. Retrieval, it is the finding memories. So you have worked hard to encode via effortful processing, a lot of work and attention on your part in order to encode that information and store some important information of your upcoming events. Then how do you get that information back out of storage when you need it? The act of getting information out of memory storage and back into conscious awareness is known as retrieval, and this is the last process. This would be similar to finding and opening a paper you had previously saved in your computer's hard drive. Now, it's back on our desktop and you can work with it again. Our ability to retrieve information from long-term memory is vital to our everyday functioning. You must be able to retrieve information from memory in order to do everything from knowing how to brush your teeth, to driving to work, to knowing how to perform your job once you get there. We have long-term memory retrieval, the storage system, and first we had recall, second recognition, and last relearning. First, we tackle the recall. Recall is what we most often think about when we talk about memory retrieval. It means you can access information without cues. For example, you could use recall for an essay test. Then next, we proceed to recognition. Recognition happens when you identify information that you have previously learned after encountering it again. It involves a process of comparison. When you take a multiple choice test, you are relying on recognition to help you choose the correct answer. The third form of retrieval is relearning, and it's just what it sounds like. It involves learning information that you previously learned. As we just learned, our brain must do some work to encode information and move it into short-term and ultimately long-term memory. If one doesn't work to encode and store information, it will likely be forgotten. What is forgetting in a way? Forgetting is the inability to retrieve or access of information when needed. There are two main ways in which forgetting occurs. First is decay. The information is not attended to and eventually fades away, very prevalent in working memory. And the second is interference. New and old information blocks access to the information in question. I have listed down memory strategies for us to decide what to study and what do we need to know. The answer is to prioritize what you're trying to learn and memorize rather than trying to tackle all of it. Then below are some strategies to help us do this. First, think about concepts rather than facts. Most of the time, instructors are concerned about you learning about the key concept in a subject or course rather than specific facts. Take cues from your instructor. Pay attention to what your instructor writes on the board, mentions repeatedly in class, or includes in study guides and handouts. They are likely core concepts that you will want to focus on. Third, look for key terms. Textbooks will often put key terms in bold or italics. And lastly, use summaries. Read end of chapter summaries or write your own to check your understanding of the main elements of the reading. Transferring information from short-term memory to long-term memory. In the previous discussion of how memory works, the importance of making intentional efforts to transfer information from short-term to long-term memory was noted. Below are some strategies to facilitate this process. First is start reviewing new material immediately. Remember that people typically forget a significant amount of new information without 24 hours of learning it. So, you have to start reviewing new material immediately. Second is study frequently for shorter periods of time. If you want to improve the odds of recalling course material by the time of an exam or in future class, try reviewing it a little bit every day. Then, strengthening your memory. How can you work to strengthen your overall memory, by the way? How? Some people have stronger memories than others, but memorizing new information takes work for anyone. Then again, I have listed some strategies that can aid memory. First is rehearsal. One strategy is rehearsal, or the conscious repetition of information to be remembered. Academic learning comes with time and practice, and at some point, the skills become second nature, right? Second is incorporate visuals. Visual aids like note cards, concept maps, and highlighted text are ways of making an information stand out. These aids make the information to be memorized seem more manageable and less daunting. Third is chunking. Chunking. Another strategy is chunking, where you organize information into manageable bits or chunks, such as turning a phone number you remember into chunks. Then, connect new information to old information. It's easier to remember new information if you can connect it to old information, a familiar frame or a reference, or a personal experience. It is really helpful. Then, get quality sleep. Although some people require more or less sleep than the recommended amount, most people should aim for 6 to 8 hours every night. I hope we're doing that. Then, lastly is create mnemonics. Memory devices known as mnemonics can help you retain information while only needing to remember a unique phrase or pattern or letter pattern that stands out. They are especially useful when we want to recall larger bits of information such as stages, steps, paces, and parts of a system. For the recap, information processing theory has 3 stages, which are encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the input of information to memory. Storage is the retaining information in memory. In order for a memory to go into storage, it has to pass through 3 distinct stages: the sensory memory, short-term memory, and the last stage, long-term memory. Then the third IPT process is retrieval. It is the finding of memories. The long-term memory retrieval or storage system will recall, recognition, and relearning. Forgetting is the inability to retrieve or access information when needed. Then there are 2 main ways in which forgetting occurs. It is the decay and interference. Memory strategies. Think about concepts rather than facts. Take cues from your instructor. Look for key terms and use summaries. Transferring information from short-term memory to long-term memory. There are 2: the start reviewing new material immediately, study frequently for shorter periods of time. Then to strengthen your memory, we have rehearsal, incorporate visuals, chunking, connect new information to old information, get quality of sleep, and create mnemonics. That would be all. Thank you.